Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Donnelly. The Spirits Educator is a digital education platform and trade resource for the distilled spirits industry. My aim is to provide in-depth spirits information, brand transparency, and category education for the distributor sales teams, service industry and hospitality members, and motivated enthusiasts. I currently work for a major wine and spirits distributor, but my work here on the Spirits Educator is completely unaffiliated with my current employer. Today I'm going to be talking about the 12 best single malt Irish whiskeys for 2024. Considering how popular Irish whiskey is, especially in the United States, I feel like single malt Irish whiskey is often overlooked, and some drinkers don't even know that single malt whiskey can be produced in Ireland. They think it just comes from Scotland. I'm going to be referencing a script that I wrote so I can communicate all this information correctly. If you would like to read my full write-up, I'll include a link below in the description. What is Irish single malt? I thought single malt whiskey only could come from Scotland. Just like Scotland, Ireland has a long history of distilling malt whiskey. There is obviously plenty of great options in the Irish single malt category, but today I'm only going to be covering 12 that I think are a great starting point. First, it's important to define Irish malt whiskey. I'm going to be using a definition from Jane Nichols' 2022 Certified Specialist of Spirits Study Guide. Irish malt whiskey must be made from 100% malted barley, with the wort separated from the solids before fermentation, and must be distilled in pot stills. The traditional practice is to use smaller pot stills in order to encourage complex flavors and a full, oily texture. However, there is no requirement as to the size of the still. Irish malt whiskey is traditionally triple distilled, although double distillation may be used. First, let's start with Bushmills 10-year single malt Irish whiskey. The Bushmills 10-year-old is the gateway expression to the brand's single malt lineup. Unlike the blended expressions, which contain a proportion of lighter grain whiskey distilled from corn or wheat, their single malt whiskey is triple distilled in copper pot stills from 100% Irish malted barley at a single distillery. This style of Irish whiskey changed when the British Crown imposed a tax on malted barley in the mid-1800s, causing most distilleries to switch to corn or to include unmalted barley. Bushmills continues the original process, and their single malts are pure malt with no peat or smoked malt. The 10-year-old expression is matured for at least 10 years separately in ex-bourbon barrels sourced from the Kelvin Cooperage in Kentucky and Oloroso sherry casks before being blended and bottled at 80 proof or 40% ABV. This is the favorite of Bushmills master blender Helen Mulholland, Ireland's first female master blender. Next is the Bushmills 12-year single malt Irish whiskey. The Bushmills 12-year-old expression is the newest addition to the single malt lineup and was designed to offer customers a bridge product between the 10-year-old and the 16-year-old expressions. This expression is triple distilled from 100% Irish malted barley and matured for a minimum of 11 years in former sherry casks and bourbon barrels before combining and finishing for 6 to 9 months in Marsala wine casks, which is a fortified wine from Sicily, a large island south of the Italian peninsula. This product is bottled at 80 proof or 40% ABV. Next is the Bushmills 16-year-old single malt Irish whiskey. The 16-year-old expression is the favorite among whiskey connoisseurs, arguably the most popular expression in the brand's single malt collection. This expression is triple distilled from 100% Irish malted barley and matured for up to 16 years in former sherry casks and bourbon barrels. Then, those barrels are mingled together and cask finished for 6 to 9 months in ruby port pipes and bottled at 80 proof or 40% ABV. Port is a type of fortified wine from Portugal, and ruby port is made in a less oxidative and fresher style. Port pipes are the official name for the casks used to mature port. They're usually long, narrow shape, and around 650 liters or 172 gallons. This expression is a whiskey of 3 kinds of wood. Each barrel provides a different influence, complexity, texture, and finish. The bourbon barrel adds caramelization, the sherry cask adds an almond characteristic, and the port pipe imparts a finish with notes of dark summer fruits. Next is the Bushmills 21-year-old single malt Irish whiskey. The Bushmills 21-year-old is the pinnacle of the brand's single malt portfolio. This expression is triple distilled from 100% Irish malted barley and aged for a minimum of 19 years in former bourbon barrels and Spanish Oloroso sherry casks. Those barrels are mingled and cask finished in Madeira wine drums for an additional 2 years. The final product is bottled at 80 proof or 40% ABV. If you are unfamiliar with Madeira, it is a fortified wine produced on the Portuguese island of Madeira, located in the Atlantic Ocean off the northwest coast of Africa. Like the 16-year-old expression, this product is a whiskey aged in 3 different types of barrels. The Bushmills 21-year-old is particularly rare because the distillery only fills 27 Madeira drums each year, each of which is around 650 liters or 172 gallons. The Bushmills distillery can fill about 250 barrels daily, to put that volume into perspective. On to the next brand, Busker Single Malt Irish Whiskey. Busker Single Malt is distilled in pot stills from 100% malted barley at the Royal Oak Distillery, located on an 18th century estate in Eastern Ireland in Clowrusk Lower, County Carlow, and just a short drive east of Kilkenny. This product has no age statement or NAS and is aged in ex-bourbon barrels and finished in sherry casks, and is finally bottled at 88.6 proof or 44.3% ABV. Next is the Connemara 12-year Peated Single Malt Irish Whiskey. Connemara is distilled from malted barley at the Old Kilbeggan Distillery, which dates back to 1757, making it the oldest licensed whiskey distillery in the Republic of Ireland. Unlike most Irish whiskey, the Connemara brand specializes in peated Irish single malt whiskey. One could think of Connemara's whiskey as Islay meets Ireland, as they retain the smooth and sweet taste of Irish whiskey with the smoky taste associated with Islay malt whiskies. Inspired by Ireland's ancient distilling tradition of drying malted barley over peat fires, Connemara's smooth, sweet malt taste and complex peat flavor makes it a unique Irish whiskey. For centuries, peat, or tough as it's known locally, was widely used in Ireland to dry cereal crops and to fire the stills. The 12-year-old label is aged at least 12 years, bottled from a single cask at 80 proof or 40% ABV, and offers an expressive aroma with a vibrant presence of malt and peaty smokiness. Connemara Cask Strength Peated Single Malt Irish Whiskey. Connemara's cask strength is the trade-up option from the 12-year-old label, which is bottled at 80 proof or 40% ABV. The cask strength label is also distilled from peated malted barley at the Old Kilbeggan Distillery. This product has no added coloring, is non-chill filtered, and is bottled uncut or undiluted at cask strength, which will vary from batch to batch. I recently tasted one bottle that was 117 proof or 57% ABV. Glendalough 7-year-old single malt Irish whiskey, Mizunara finished. This expression is a single malt Irish whiskey produced at one single distillery, triple distilled in pot stills from a mash of just Irish malted barley, and double matured for 7 years in heavily charred ex-bourbon barrels, and up to 1 year in number 3 charred Mizunara casks, which are around 500 liters. This product is non-chill filtered and bottled at 92 proof or 46% ABV. The 7-year-old age statement represents the 7 years that St. Kevin lived in the wilderness and the 7 churches he built. And if you see a bottle of the Glendalough 7-year-old Mizunara Finish Irish Single Malt, you'll see a picture of St. Kevin with his arms spread out on the front label. The Irish Saint, St. Kevin, is actually featured on the label of all Glendalough products. Glendalough is the first Irish whiskey distillery to use Mizunara. Grown on Hokkaido, Japanese northern and least populated mainland island. Mizunara is notoriously rare and exotic because it takes 200 years for a tree to mature, and each tree might only give you one cask because they are prone to grow twisted. The year's harvest is sold in one day at blind auction, and each cask can cost $3,000. Mizunara means water oak, and it takes 3 years to dry them, making them extremely brittle and hard to shape into barrels. You'll find there's a red cord or thread tied around the neck of the bottle. This is the red thread of fate. The Japanese believe an invisible red thread connects those who are destined to be together. In this case, it represents the connection between 2 islands on the far side of the world, Hokkaido and Ireland. I hope I'm saying that right. Marrying Japanese design and Irish storytelling. The red thread of fate signifies what you seek is seeking you. Limavady Single Malt Single Barrel Irish Whiskey. Limavady is a single barrel single malt Irish whiskey created by former Bushmills master distiller Daryl McNally. The name comes from Daryl's hometown of Limavady in Northern Ireland, which translates to Leap of the Dog. The legend goes that an Irish wolfhound leaped across the River Roe to warn his clan of an enemy ambush. Daryl's grandfather lost ownership of his family's distillery during American Prohibition, and he hopes to resurrect the family legacy with his leap into a new, independent Irish whiskey brand. The product is triple distilled in copper pot stills from 100% Irish barley, first aged in ex-bourbon barrels, then finished 2 to 3 weeks in Pedro Ximénez sherry casks and bottled 1 barrel at a time at 92 proof or 46% ABV. Tullamore D.E.W 14-year-old single malt Irish whiskey. Tullamore D.E.W 14-year-old is a single malt Irish whiskey aged in 4 cask types. This product is triple distilled from 100% malted barley at one distillery, which is the definition of a single malt. Most single malt whiskeys from Scotland or Japan are double distilled, but Irish single malt whiskeys are usually triple distilled, generally producing a smoother flavor. This product is aged a minimum of 14 years in former or ex-bourbon barrels, then finished for a minimum of 6 months in ex-Oloroso sherry butts, ex-port pipes, and ex-Madeira drums, bottled in small batches of fewer than 200 casks at 82.6 proof or 41.3% ABV. Next is the Tullamore D.E.W 18-year single malt Irish whiskey. The Tullamore D.E.W 18-year-old is the oldest expression ever released by the brand. This product is triple distilled from 100% malted barley at one distillery. The whiskey has aged a minimum of 18 years in former or ex-bourbon barrels, then finished for a minimum of 6 months in ex-Oloroso sherry butts, ex-port pipes, and ex-Madeira drums, bottled in small batches of fewer than 20 casks or fewer than 2,500 bottles at 82.6 proof or 41.3% ABV. And finally, the Tyrconnell single malt Irish whiskey. The Tyrconnell single malt Irish whiskey is originally from the Andrew Watt Distillery, established in 1762. The name comes from a horse that won against all odds at the National Produce Stakes in 1876. Tyrconnell is double distilled from 100% malted barley from one distillery. It is double distilled. Its double distillation gives it a robust flavor profile with more characteristic than triple distilled blends. This product is bottled with no age statement, or NAS, at 86 proof or 43% ABV, so the whiskey is approachable, making it an ideal introduction for those exploring the world of Irish whiskey, particularly Irish single malt whiskey. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support this channel further, please consider becoming a Patreon member or gifting me a drink through the link below in the description. If you would like to be notified whenever I release new content on my website or this YouTube channel, please consider signing up for my newsletter. I'll include a link below in the description. And as always, please drink responsibly.